The Cape Peninsula, Cape Town, a place of natural beauty and temperate climate. Here, water flows across the land in seeming abundance. We love to be near the streams, rivers, lakes, and the oceans. Its flow calms us, reassures us that all is well, and reminds us that water is life. Before the Europeans arrived, the area of Cape Town was called Camisa, meaning sweet waters that flowed from the mountain streams. It watered the Dutch fleet and the growing settlement. The expanding desires of the colonists soon led to the Khoi and San, the indigenous peoples, violently losing their land and the water that sustained them. Their food and knowledge system that viewed water as sacred was erased. In their place, enslaved people were imported to meet the labor needs of the new plantations, and a form of extraction developed called racial capitalism. This colonial past continues to weigh heavily on the present. And nowhere is this more evident than with the city's water crisis.
Day zero will happen when the dams reach 13.5%.
Forgive our sins, bring rain to the land. Plenty rain.
We can no longer ask people to stop wasting water. We now have to force them.
Fearing possible unrest, the military was put on standby to supervise the proposed water distribution points.
Councillor Jordan Hill-Lewis is duly elected as the mayor for the city of Cape Town.
The mayor makes it clear that in his term of office, he will seek to solve the massive water and sanitation crisis.
My fellow Cape Townians, the purpose we have chosen to fulfill is to turn Cape Town into a beacon of hope for South Africa at a time when millions of our citizens believe that our country is past the point of no return, and where local governments can do nothing more than manage decline. I am not one of those people, and this will not be one of those governments.
Today, the annual rainfall continues to be insufficient, and water supplied to the city's working poor remains highly restricted. Is there another way? And if so, where do we look to for solutions?
So we have been storing water, as you can see, in different types of containers and bottles, 5-liter bottles. But as we're storing, we're also using it so that we don't end up with water that's standing too long. But it's more of a safety precaution because we've been threatened by the city of Cape Town over months now that they're going to put us on the drip system because we're using more than 500 liters of water per day. Now this is not just for us, it counts for us who lives in the backyard. And I think we're about 12 living here at the moment. And so we can't afford to be without water.
The city's attempt to avert catastrophe, Day Zero, came out of a terrible drought. In the years that followed, policies have been introduced to restrict household consumption and consolidate control over water.
They were telling the poor to save water, and they were asked to save water that they don't have.
We see it happening in communities where people are using too little water. They are not using what they're supposed to.
They don't mention backyarding, they don't mention leaks. All of those things clearly are going to lead to this situation. And we raised all of that, and the response that we got actually was to say, what we need are responsible citizens.
There's no logic. You know, if you look at the actual statistics of unemployment and how much people have, there's no way this can work. Like, there's no way that you were not going to get this letter. In 1994, we had between 12 and 14 million households that didn't have access to water. That's about 40 million people. And if we jump ahead to 2019, the state's own research shows that there were 3.5 million households that didn't have access to clean water. That's about 21 million people today. Part of the problem is that we have given the human right to water the same standing as the corporate right to water. This was the negotiated settlement where we kept private property, land was not returned, water was also not returned.
South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. Cape Town is its most racially unequal city. 600,000 people of colour are on the waiting list for social housing. Many live in informal settlements, while real estate housing developments are booming.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good, and you?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we're off. We can't just allow totally unconstrained water usage, of course. So there does need to be a basic allocation that for the poor. And my understanding at the last time that I checked these figures was that ours was the most generous basic allocation of any in the country, of any city in the country. We give the most generous basic allocation, above which people do need to start paying for the services that they consume. The price of water is not so prohibitively expensive that in an entire family where, even if most of the family are unemployed, that they would not be able to pay something towards that. And so I do think that's an important principle to establish in South Africa, that you must pay something for the services that you use over and above the indigency allocation.
We have a city that tells itself that they are doing the utmost to give to the poor. And this is the language that they use. And the problem with it is that there's no sense of inequality that actually links who has water and who doesn't have water.
Day Zero exposed the very deep levels of inequality in distribution of the city's water, where just 13% of the population were using 51% of the supply. The cost recovery approach, the stated need to earn revenue from water, meant there was no real motivation to encourage wealthy households to cut back on their use. When it came to saving water, the onus was on the city's 2 million poor.
Just 1 rand sugar, and we buy 1 rand coffee, and it works nicely for 3 cups. And the kids were saying now, they brought me a container and said I must put the sugar in there so that the camera don't see we have 1 rand sugar. And I said, you want us to lie? Why are we not being, this is our reality. This is what we have. Already as a woman, it comes with responsibilities. You have to do everything in the house. And you are responsible for thinking about everyone and everyone's well-being. And then there's the activism. There's people in this road at this moment that don't have water. That's our struggle.
The city of Cape Town has now changed its policy last year, and it said every household can only use 500 or less. If they use more than 500, they punish you. That statement says punish you. Punish ons as kinders. Slat jy oor jou hande as jy nie wil hoor nie. That's how they treat us. So after your second punishment, the city manager, he has the sole priority, the sole authority to put you on prepaid. Weet julle wat is prepaid? Wat is waterkoep? Like electricity boxes.
So ultimately we are fighting for people to have water coming from their taps inside their homes and enough for them to use for all their basic needs. And then for us to be able to achieve that, we have to get communities conscientized.
We are focusing on the issue of water, and people have various other issues. But it's important that we fight for this now, because people cannot live without water.
We are all using water on basic needs. I didn't see any one of you list a swimming pool.
If we really want to cut water costs, what is water being used for? Do we need what's being mined? Do we need wine, beer, the export of our juices? Or do we first need to say, what is enough? What is enough for every person to have enough drinking water, enough water to grow food with? And beyond that, we can deal with what the luxuries are.
In the sweeping mountain ranges on the continental side of the Cape Flats, the city built large water dams made up of pristine mountain streams, providing millions with fresh water. The rainfall that flows from the Table Mountain range and percolates into the ground, feeding the water table of the Cape Flats, has recently been identified as a new source of fresh water. It's part of a huge lake of underground water called aquifers.
Is it safe to come? Right. That's my wife's herb garden. While doing this work, I came across a very wise soil scientist, Professor Obacht. And he looked at me and said, Nazeer, you know, you must decide what you're going to become. You're going to be an activist or you're going to be a farmer. At the time, I had no hesitation. I said, I want to be both. But now I realize that I suck at both. But I'm forced to do both, because in order to farm, I have to protect the area in which I want to farm in. This is where you are. You're in the Philippine horticulture area. It's 3,000 hectares in extent. Think of 3,000 rugby fields or football fields. We have an abundant water supply. We're literally walking on water here. There's a huge dam in the soil. Now this makes our area drought-proof.
In 2014, when I met Nazeer, we'd heard that the urban edge had been shifted. It's really desperately important that you don't let go of your drought-proof farmland. And it's one of the last 3 green lungs left in the city of Cape Town. And so that's exactly what you need to preserve in a time of climate change.
The farmers need the aquifer to support hundreds of livelihoods and thousands of jobs.
Farmers in the Philippine horticulture area in Cape Town are concerned about the possible loss of agricultural land due to developments.
Developers are speculating in the area and they're buying up land and they are trying to force rezones.
They've been campaigning since 2011 when Western Cape government approved a proposal for this section of land to be open for possible development.
They are challenging the legality of the process that was followed to determine what can be done with 2 pieces of land in the that is no longer within the PHA. To give you an idea, this is the bigger PHA area. The 2 pieces of land we are talking about are those 2 pieces there.
Okay, so that was the shenanigans at the steps of the court. As a child, I remember things like going to the chicken coop and collecting the eggs for breakfast in the morning, the fruit trees, the cow. Suddenly one day, it all disappeared. I was removed from the area under apartheid. And what we're facing now is that I'm also going to be removed from this area again as an adult. It may be going to a different kind of mode. And I wasn't going to take it. This is my daughter. This is my daughter. She's old, but she's very willing. First swing start. So what you see behind me is the battlefront of our struggle. From the sand dune across to those sand dunes poking out there in the distance, all the way across to a line of blue gums in Strandfontein Road. All of this is 1,000 hectares. And this is where half of it is the Oakland City land, where they're proposing to put up a mini city right here in the middle of the farming area. This area is the highest recharge area of the Cape Flats aquifer, which means that here the water sinks into the soil quicker, easier because of the soil geology. If this area is paved over and you put a skin of concrete and tar and roofs over this area, it's going to suffocate this aquifer, and this aquifer will not be able to recharge naturally.
Long ago, the streams of Table Mountain flowed into open canals through the city. But they ended up becoming open sewers. To remove the health hazard, the colonial administration built tunnels for these scores of streams to flow through. Every day, an estimated 9 million litres of water flows through these tunnels, largely unused, to the nearby ocean. And meanwhile, our freshwater streams are polluted and disused. While the city has grown, public spending on water and sanitation infrastructure has not. Our artificial separation from nature now means our environment is carrying the cost. A landscape originally dotted with lakes, wetlands and watercourses once fed the needs of the local population. Now, many are destroyed beyond repair or highly polluted.
Residents in Millerton are kicking up a stink because of 6 long years of sewage problems. Issues with a nearby sewage plant pump, failures and a polluted stormwater system have all contributed to the lagoon being closed for use.
This is one page where it says we're a wetland city, which is wonderful news. Now, if I go 3 pages on in the same local magazine, it says rising Milnerton stench is hitting residents hard. Now, that's really true. And yet Milnerton Lagoon is part of a wetland system. So one has to question how seriously the city is taking that duty of care when they are allowing some of their own infrastructure to pollute the lagoon, in fact, be the major sources of pollution in the lagoon. And yet it seems to be business as normal for the city, and I think that's something that has to be challenged. All our investigations point to the sewage treatment plant being a major source of the pollution, as well as pump stations that have failed frequently and led to raw sewage flowing into the lagoon.
Hi, Caroline.
We've had a big problem over the weekend again. The lagoon has been stinking. I've been in contact with the Maker member. Last weekend there was sludge running in the river again. They said there was a problem at the plant. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to find today, but I'm very glad we're testing today. I despair sometimes, really. Yeah, storm water shouldn't look like that. In 2019, I laid a formal complaint with the Western Cape Department of Environment, who are known as the Green Scorpions, and asked for their assistance and investigation. And they did a very thorough investigation. I was impressed. And the result of that was that the city was issued with a directive. So legally, that was a very important step.
There is a profoundly moral element to getting the basics right and to good government. What we've got to do is make sure that our infrastructure investment and our basic services can keep up with the huge number of people that want to come and live in Cape Town.
Good morning, Bruce. I want to get something important done. That's my sense of kind of purpose. In Cape Town, one of those difficult things is the state of our sanitation infrastructure. Morning, Linda. Thank you. Is it big enough? It's infrastructure that is reasonably good, but is completely overloaded, and the investment in which has not kept up with the growth in the population of our city. You've got to fix it, and so we are fixing it. Very cool. Cheers. Cheers. That beautiful clear water that you saw inside is going to go underneath the highway and feed the Fora water recycling plant, which we're breaking ground on next year. And in the years ahead, we'll produce absolutely crystal clear drinking water from wastewater. There is an equity, an inclusion, and indeed a moral aspect to functioning basic services. Thank you. So I feel that responsibility deeply, but I understand that the way that I have to serve out that responsibility or fulfill it is to make sure that the services work, and that requires revenue. There's no two ways about it. There's a separate debate to be had about whether that should be funded by the private sector off balance sheet or not, but for the time being, the dominant view is that it should be funded by the state and recovered from the use of the service.
We have a city that is absolutely committed to a cost recovery program.
We can now build housing projects. We can now build social housing projects around here. So this is really important.
When you look at South Africa, Cape Town has the most expensive properties and the lowest tax rates. And so if you were to tax the highest properties in Cape Town 1%, just 1% more, you would solve any argument that says we don't have money for the water infrastructure or for redistribution.
Faeza, ek mag op jou wys waar hulle die meter ingesit. Die is ons routine die hele dag, né? Ons moet die hele dag dit op en toe maak om te check. En as ons dit oopmaak en daai kraan en dit water daar binne, Dan is ook soos mense wat geld gekry het because daar op ons kinders kom, van daai tande maak vol, you know. Dan is ons so excited because ons het water. Ja, ons het geld as Kersfees vir ons. So ja, maar die is die routine wat ons heel dag moet volg. So as ons dit opmaak en daar is die nie, just too bad. Die probleem het begin wat die meter en die watermeter wat dit kom insit is.
Okay.
Die is waar hulle die meter insit. Buitekant, net eens op jou property nie, because as hulle hier insit, dan kan hulle maak wat doen en maak wat hulle wil. Daar sommige mense wat eens weet hulle meter word ingesit het. So as jy morgen opstaan en sien jy net het 'n meter in. You understand?
Ek het 'n 5 jaar oud klonkie dan en kinders wil mos speel. Nou hy is nie allowed om in die park te speel nie. Reason, hy het hom nog vuil maak. En hy moet one set of clothes he needs to wear 2 days. Because I can't elke dag different klere aantrekken because daughter, you can't wash every day. So, en in die meeste van die tyd moet ons water koop. Ons betaal vir 20 liter, ja R40 wat het opgehaal. So ja, dit is 'n groot struggle vir ons.
Okay, so die water wat jy koop, is dit by die municipality?
Nee,
okay,
is by die draaglood. Dit jy weet nie hoe moet jy nou die brood koop of moet jy nou die water koop? Dat daar soos jy en as 'n ma maak dit jou seer because that jy weet nie altyd hoe om vir jou kinders te explain dat daar die water is, you understand? So you need to make a plan every day.
Education, safety, housing, water, none of these services have ever been given willingly. We only get what we're organized to take.
Hi! Hi! This one is the most important one. We are here because we need to highlight what's happening because we know the people that's going to struggle without water. And if at any stage we want the mayor or the mayor's person to say to us, who do we contact if people are without water during the holidays when you are on holiday? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we can't expect miracles to happen overnight, but at some stage and at some point we must put pressure. And this, I think, is our point of pressure. They are doing nothing for our poor people! And so we're here today to say no. We're here to say today we also want the festive season. We also want food on our tables. We also want our children to have water in their taps at school. Water is a human right. And we are all human beings. And those big companies like SA Breweries that's going to make nice beer for the holidays. We cannot part in beer. We cannot make food with beer. Huh? Nestle chocolate is using how many liters to make one chocolate? But our children is thirsty. We are here because we are saying no. No more. Enough is enough. That you can only run away from us so many times. This is not the end of it. No. This is only the beginning. Yes. It's only the first time they're seeing us here. We will get the mayor where we want the mayor to be when we are ready. Yeah?
Wetlands are an essential part of the water cycle. They clean and recharge groundwater supplies, reduce flood risk, and provide a critically important habitat for fish, birds and plant life.
Coming here with my parents as a child, and we used to come braai here. And I was surprised to see this place now. It looks very desolate now. And the reason is because the flares are, they're so polluted. And part of the pollution is the mismanagement of the blue infrastructure in the city, but also the infrastructure that the city put in place to manage the waste. That's the landfill site over there, and right next door to the landfill site is the water treatment works. So a lot of waste flows into this area, and that impacts on the zikoflay, impacts on the aquifer in the soil.
Much of Cape Town's poorly treated sewage is pumped directly into the sea. And it takes a whopping 55 million litres of fresh water to get it there every day.
For 10 years, they haven't been reporting on the quality of the water. And now that they are reporting, it's ridiculous the way water is being polluted. At any given time, you'll get a message on your WhatsApp or a leaflet saying, boil your water before you use it, which means the quality isn't good enough. We just drink it most of the time. I know of many working class people who just drink it because we can't afford it. And for those of us who can't afford it, we need to buy extra electricity or extra gas. And so even that, not included as a cost by the city, but it is a cost on poor people.
Water that does not generate revenue or profits is increasingly under threat by those who seek to cut their operational costs by using our water sources as a dumping ground. Mobilized communities are quickly waking to the notion that we cannot separate our health from our natural environment, that we are part of nature.
The smell is just horrible, and I am so fed up because when it's like this, the only thing you can do is close every single room, window in your house, all the doors, which is not so bad in winter, but it's really hot in summer. And then I've also got this air purifier, which improves the smell, but of course it doesn't work when we don't have electricity. I think the mayor thought if he came in with good management skills, it would be relatively easily resolved. I think it has been a huge learning curve. I'm sure he is as frustrated as I am about the slow progress.
Ms. Marx.
My first one is just a comment that I'm actually astounded to note that the city wishes to push out the completion dates for Potsdam for another 2 years. So from a community point of view, it causes us to lose complete faith in what is promised to us. Thank you.
A fascinating question. The city must bear some responsibility for why we are where we are. We have not invested adequately in bulk wastewater treatment capacity at Potsdam on time. The construction sector and engineering sector must bear some responsibility for subjecting every single tender to the most relentless appeals and challenges, all squabbling for the money that the city is prepared to spend, but only having the effect of delaying these projects for years. Okay?
The City of Cape Town is continuing to plough billions of rand into infrastructure upgrades. The latest, an upgrade to the Potsdam wastewater treatment works.
The wastewater that goes through the treatment process benefits from this ultra technology, if you will, so that when the wastewater effluent, the treated effluent, makes its way back into the environment, we know that we're discharging high quality treated effluent.
Potsdam, it's not going to be finished for 3 years, but you're starting to see the projects kick in. That's already a huge improvement and a burden being lifted off the lagoon. It no longer has to try and absorb all that pollution. During the winter, we had really heavy rains, which flooded the lagoon and washed out a lot of the pollution. The water became clean. The smell was gone, the fish returned, the birds returned. I even had seals swimming outside my house every day. It was wonderful. Two months ago, there was a catastrophic sewage line collapse. The pumps at major pump station were damaged, and the city has been struggling to repair them for 2 months, which has meant enormous raw sewage spills into the lagoon again. The water has turned murky. The smell has returned. We see the fish have started to disappear. The birds are fleeing again, and it has been quite devastating.
That particular wastewater treatment plant was held back by 10 years because people were fighting about the tender process. Because obviously when you outsource your stuff, there's an opportunity to make money, you know. I personally think that things that are for the public good should be run by the municipality with a crew of people that know what they're doing and that take pride in their work, not who are trying to extract the maximum profit out of it.
This has been a 10-year journey. I became an activist entirely by accident. I have learned so much. I have done things I never thought I would do. But I had always relied on the authorities to sort things out and had confidence in them that they would do it. And in our case, they have failed completely time and time again. The need to upgrade Potsdam was identified in 2011. If I don't service my car for 12 years, I can expect problems. Now, it seems that the city is presenting itself here as the innocent victim. It's been a real learning curve for me to learn to stand my ground. You promised to fix it years ago, and it's still not fixed. That was a huge challenge for me personally, and especially to do it publicly. I'm quite a reserved person. I found that quite difficult. I think it's clear contravention of the directive. It's a clear contravention, a knowing contravention of the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
The city is not inevitably inept. But what the city does, and this is disaster capitalism waiting in the wings, they can't wait to say, we can't do it, it's too difficult. Clearly we can't. We need the consultants and the corporates to take over.
So from the person who comes to install that meter, it's all private companies that are taking tenders and they are getting commission for every meter they install, and they don't care whether you want it or not. They need their commission, so they will install that meter on your property. There's a real crisis out there, but it's up to us to take that issues on.
Almost 80% of all water services are currently run by the state. But in the next 10 years, this is going to be reduced to 35%. So you see an opportunity, right? Because there's money to be made. And when a company runs it, they run it to make money. It's a business model. They need to make money. So they will have to charge people more.
And I'll just give you a few country examples here. And of course, starting in Germany, because we are today in Berlin.
Across the global north, these corporates have their eyes on the global south because there is money to be made. And so the next frontier, as it were, with the same kind of unfolding of capitalist and colonial expansion, are water markets in the global south. That's the new blue gold.
Africa's fast shrinking urban water supplies have started a wave of privatizations and public-private partnerships. Leading government agencies like the United Nations have been convinced that governments simply do not have the money to invest and need the private sector to step in.
Good government underpins economic growth. Economic growth underpins investment. And investment and economic growth both lift people out of poverty over time. We also know that a growing economy requires constant infrastructure investment that keeps pace with our fast-growing city population. Successful cities are those who are always building and investing in new infrastructure. When you stop building, you stop growing.
Growth, as it's commonly understood, only really ever benefits the rich. It's become the altar we must all now bow before, and is part of a politics that so often displays a contempt for the poor.
The current growth and development model, which will supposedly trickle down to have money for what he calls the poor, isn't working. It's the cause of the problem. It's the cause of why we have the drought. It's the cause of why we have climate change. It's a system based on extraction.
For over 10 years, the Philippi Horticultural Area Food and Farming Campaign has been advocating for the protection of the area and eventually saw victory when Judge Kate Savage ruled in their favor.
The aquifer in this area is very, very important and it must be protected. And this is the reason why the judge suspended the approvals for this development.
If the developer decides to fight it even further, we're going to skip the Supreme Court and we want to go straight to the Constitutional Court, because our biggest argument here is food security. And so it becomes a human rights issue. So we'll take it to the Constitutional Court. We'll win eventually.
So after 10 years of fighting developers and sand mining companies, we have finally secured 100 hectares that now forms part of the land reform of the Philippi Horticulture Area. We want to see restorative justice for our people here.
I don't believe this situation will fundamentally change until people start to be fired for not doing their jobs properly or until they are jailed. It's only then that the legislation will be taken seriously.
There's paperwork in that, so it's not so heavy. Take it inside.
I think for us to be able to take back our water and fight for our water, we also still need to protest. Take the people out on the streets because government is not listening to us. So I think the only way they listen to us is when we go out to the streets.
But this is our protest. Us taking the commons, making sure that we have our own water, starting our own community water management systems. This is a form of protest. This is us saying we can do it if you're not able to or you're not willing to, because I think that's the issue.
Can we end this human tragedy that is continuing to unfold before us? Perhaps protecting nature and the water it provides from the take, make and waste approach is the only way we can defend the most vulnerable amongst us. Surely it's time to work with the life force that nature provides and not against it. Changing direction means nature's wealth needs to be held in common and shared equally. Maybe it's time that we place humanity and nature at the center of all our considerations.